My name is Danny DelVecchio, and I am a sales and digital marketing coach. I also own a content creation agency, helping people to streamline their content creation process and create a whole bunch of content in under an hour. So yeah, I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me.
Thanks so much for being here, Danny. Well, I think your story of how you became a agency owner, content creator is super, super interesting. How did this all begin? Because it's a super interesting story.
Yeah, definitely. So the first time I dabbled into content creation was 2014. I started a podcast with a friend of mine, and that was called the Ocho Podcast. We just kind of used to bullshit about TV and movies. And then I was like, you know what? I want to keep doing podcasting. I really like it. I enjoy it. So I decided that I was going to start a second podcast. And, I was into the TV and film category, and I was looking to see what type of podcasts were in there. And this was like the time of Game of Thrones and Breaking Bad. Those are the big TV shows at the time. And those shows had hundreds, if not maybe even 1,000 podcasts about those TV shows. And I was like, well, my favorite TV show is Impractical Jokers, and there's 0 podcasts about it. So I started one.
Yeah. And it became pretty.
That's it. That's how I started.
Yeah. Well, this podcast became pretty big, right?
I wasn't expecting anything from it. I just started to kind of put it out there, and they have a crazy fan base. Impractical Jokers, very loyal fan base. It's kind of funny. It's a lot of middle-aged women, which I was not anticipating when I started the podcast. I thought it was going to be more like young people, but middle-aged women love these guys. But it was interesting because we would have people call in, and we had a voicemail where people could answer a question of the day. And we had kind of games that we would play with our audience. We had a trivia game where there was Impractical Jokers trivia, and people would try to compete against me. And then we started to reach out to people that were in the Impractical Jokers network. So we ended up getting a lot of the producers from the TV show, the comedy producers, which were basically the writers. We had the executive producer of the show, Pete McPartland. He was on there. I actually ended up getting one of the Impractical Jokers, Murr, was a guest on the show. So it was really cool. I even got to go out and do not a live podcast, but I got to go out to the production company, the office of the production company who makes the show. And I hung out in the writer's room and did an episode with 6 of them all in one shot. So it was really cool. And the show had amazing success. I forgot. We were number 1 on the iTunes New and Noteworthy, and we hit the top 3 in the TV film category. And we've had over 400,000 downloads across 60 episodes. So that was the beginning of me learning how to promote and market, was all because of podcasting.
Wow. And coming in as kind of like a novice, just not really knowing exactly what you're doing, but just following kind of a passion, seeing an opportunity, taking it, and then rolling with it. You talked about that. You didn't really know what you were doing. You probably could have made some money on it, but you didn't really know, right? So tell me about that. If you knew what you knew now, would you continue down that path, or how do you think you'd handle it today, knowing all that you know now?
Yeah, if I knew what I knew now, I could have turned it into a significant monthly income with the number of downloads that we were getting. We were definitely eligible to have sponsorship. It was weird though, because I kind of felt that I didn't want to capitalize on somebody else's success. And I felt a little bit weird about sponsorship because of that, because I was am I just capitalizing on the success of the Impractical Jokers to make money for myself? So I never really had sponsorship, as I kind of looked at sponsorship kind of weird, but I didn't know about affiliate marketing. I didn't know about any of the other ways that you can make money with your podcast. So had I known about affiliate marketing, I could have been selling t-shirts or helping them sell tickets, or really anything, but I just didn't know. So had I known what I know now about podcasting and how you can monetize a podcast, I certainly would have probably done a paid community. I probably would have done a Patreon. I would have done affiliate marketing, and probably would have got some sponsor that was in line with the show. And that made sense.
Tell me about, so you had the podcast, eventually you decided to to stop it and pursue new things. So walk me through there. You had the podcast, but you didn't really know how to maybe monetize it and make it into a business.
Yeah. So basically I had trouble keeping up with the podcast after a while. We were about 60 episodes in, and my co-host, he couldn't swing it anymore with he had a growing family and work obligations. And I even got a promotion at work, and I was doing a lot of traveling at the time. So I was, running I was running up and down the whole East Coast. I was traveling 3 out of 4 weeks every month. So it was very difficult to schedule. The other thing was, because I didn't have the co-host anymore, I didn't think it was the type of podcast that was able to do as a solo. It needed to have a guest every week. And that proved to be difficult too, because I was trying to schedule people from the show. And then if they would cancel, then I was screwed for that week, because, the podcast was topical. The conversations were related to the most recent episode. So it wasn't like I could just get a bunch of people, do a bunch of interviews, bank them. I would have had to completely change the format of the show. But again, had I, been more involved in understanding how the podcast world worked, I definitely would not have let go of this podcast with the audience that I had.
Yeah. So you were working at a job back then. You weren't an entrepreneur. What was you now run your own business? You're a content creator as well. What was the journey into entrepreneurship and restarting that content creation journey?
Yeah, so I was working for a company that I had a really good job. I was a sales director. I was in charge of 50 people. I had 7 managers and 40 something sales reps on my team. And the company got acquired. And, of course, kind of had trouble finding another role and had to go back and get back into an individual contributor sales role. And I got this new job literally in March of 2020. So the timing kind of sucked for that. This brand new sales job in a brand new industry that I really knew nothing about. So I had a big learning curve to learn the industry. And then, while I was working that job, I also realized hey, I don't want to be an individual contributor. I want to be doing coaching, and I want to be training, and I want to be doing all these things that I was doing prior. And I was like, all right, I'm going to start a little side hustle and see what I can do to kind of build that up while I'm still working my sales job. And then if I could earn enough money, with my side hustle, that I could potentially look at doing something like that full time, or, I could look at trying to get promoted over here while I'm starting to build this thing. Right. So my idea was, again, I knew podcasting. That's what I knew. So I said, I'm going to start another podcast, and I'm going to figure out how to monetize it this time. This time I started a podcast, which was kind of a cool concept, but it got lumped into the wrong category. So the concept of the podcast was called For My Sons. And basically what I wanted to do was I wanted to interview cool and influential people in my life, and basically kind of use the episodes as a almost time capsule for my sons, and leave it for my sons when they grow older and they're able to listen to it, and they're ready to take on life's journeys and challenges and everything like that. And it got lumped into the parenting category. So I'm doing all these episodes, and it just ends up being all about parenting, and it ended up being a dad podcast or whatever. And it's not really what I set out, because the whole idea with the podcasting was, hey, I'm going to figure out how to, take the audience that I have and monetize that audience, and, with coaching and things like that. And I'm like, wait, hold on a second. I do not want to be coaching people in parenting at all. That's not I feel like I'm a good parent, I'm a good father, or whatever, but that is not cool. I don't it's not comfortable for me, right? To teach people how to parent. So I was like, I got a little bit of a dilemma here. And so I joined this podcast mastermind group, and the guy who ran the podcasting mastermind group, as we got to know each other a little bit, he started to learn about all this background that I had in business and sales. And he goes, it's time for you to stop doing this podcast, start a coaching business, promote the coaching business on social media, on Instagram. And then when the business is a little bit more established, then you can build the podcast that serves the business. And I was like, okay, makes sense. So he's like, all right, get on video. And I was like, I don't do video. I'm like, I do audio. That's why I do podcasting, because I don't want to do video. Well, anyway, he was like, no, you're going to get on video. So I got on video. I started making video content. and on Instagram. And I got 1,000 followers pretty quick, got 2,000 followers even quicker, got 3,000 followers even quicker than that. And, now I had like a good base of people and very active and engaged community. And I was pulling clients and, doing workshops and getting people into the coaching business. And I started to really grow the coaching business. And then in working with the coaching, what I realized is that there's two problems that people have when it comes to content creation, right? Two main ones. There's many problems, but there's two main ones that prevent people from creating content. One is that they don't have time. And that's a like this too, because that's a quote unquote, because you can make time. If it's a priority, you make time, right? But the other one is they just don't know what to post. Those are the two problems. They don't have time and they don't know what to post. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to create something that allowed people to get out there as much content as they possibly could in as short a period of time as they possibly could, while still being the face of their brand, while still being the voice of their brand, right? And that's where I came up with this system where basically I do an interview style, just like very similar to a podcast interview. And I just ask questions that are related to the topics and to the industry and to the target audience of our clients. And they answer the questions and we record the session, and we are able to take those recordings and turn them into short form video content. And we can get 12 video recordings in 30 minutes. And then we have the ability to take those 12 video recordings and also repurpose it into other content, be it carousels or single image or text-based posts. So if people want more content, we have the ability to deliver that to them too. So that was the idea. And, we kind of have this cool method where we do the virtual recording studio. And I've just been working on growing that business and still doing some coaching. I just started a mastermind group as well. And I've been doing some training on LinkedIn because I recently discovered that there is a very amazing community of creators on LinkedIn that I had no idea existed. So I've been doing all these things, and it all stemmed from a podcast.
What's your kind of like social media strategy? And the question always comes up, okay, well, how does a video lead to business, right? For us, it seems like, well, duh, but for some people, it's kind of an esoteric concept. So walk me through, like, how does your service, actually result in more business for people?
Yeah, absolutely. So, right now, the biggest opportunity that people have when it comes to organic marketing is short form video, because short form video of people sharing their knowledge, their expertise, their personal stories, the stories of their clients, and how they're getting their clients from point A to point B. Those videos, when they are seen by somebody, they are the best way to connect deeper with your audience. There are so many great content writers out there, and they do a really good job of connecting to their audience through written content, but it's much harder. It is way more challenging because they're not seeing your face. They're not seeing your voice. You have to be a very good writer to be able to make the same type of connection that anybody can make with video. And you think about it, I deal with a lot of coaches, because nowadays it feels like everybody's a coach, right? So I was on Instagram. On Instagram, everybody's either a coach or they're a digital marketer. That's it. That's the only two people that are on Instagram, right? So with coaches, there are so many coaches out there. They all provide a similar service. They all provide similar results. And it's very, very difficult to differentiate yourself from the next person. So the best way for you to differentiate yourself is to put yourself out there on video, talking, and again, sharing your ideas, sharing your stories, because it's those people that resonate with your stories and that vibe with you that are going to say, hey, you know what? I need to learn a little bit more about what this guy does. And when you give out all these stories and you give out these tips and educational things, people are like, wow, this guy's giving away a ton of stuff for free. Imagine what it's like to actually work with him, and what am I going to get when I pay him? Right. So that's the idea. Right now, to me, the number one way to market your business, to market your personal brand, is your personal brand through video content.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Give us
I
some
know
tips
that
here briefly.
you probably agree with that.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. A video, like you said, short form video content has the highest discoverability or organic reach, meaning basically people online can find you for free. You don't have to pay for it. And the best way to get found online right now in 2023 is through the short form video platforms like YouTube Shorts, Instagram Reels, Facebook Stories, TikTok, of course. So yeah, so Danny, give us some tips. So short form vertical video, we should be creating it for a business. Give us a few tips here on how we can maybe improve it. Working with you is an option, but what are some just kind of tips that you make sure to include in those videos to make them stand out and be better than the competition?
Yeah, totally. The number one thing is, obviously what you talk about is super important, right? So I really would say that there are three types of videos that you should create. Number one is educational tips to share your knowledge and expertise and show that you are authority in the subject that you speak about. The second one is personal journey. Everybody relates to personal journey stories. So when you talk about things, challenges that you faced, accomplishments you've had, failures you've had, people will relate to your personal stories. And then the last thing is talk about your clients. And this is the one that people don't do enough, right? It's like, talk about what you are working on with your clients. What is a session like with you? Right after you come out of a session with one of your clients, go and talk about it. Talk about why they came to you, what they were struggling with and why they came to you, and how you got them from point A to point B. Because when you start to do that and you start to tell these client stories and the transformation, and this is like, it's kind of cliche type stuff, but like transformation it's big. People want a transformation. They want you to help them get from A to B. And when you tell the client stories of how that works, people start to picture themselves as your client. So that's one thing, is obviously, like I said, just hone in on what it is that you're talking about in your messaging. And then the other thing is, the videos have to look good. If they don't look good or they don't sound good, people may not continue to watch them, right? And it's not that hard to make the videos look good nowadays. There's so much stuff out there to help you make your videos look good. You grab yourself a ring light and your cell phone, and I highly recommend a microphone. These are all things that you can get for, you get a ring light, a microphone, and add it to your cell phone, and you're spending like $50, right? Like, invest your $50 to elevate your stuff that much, right? And then learn one of these apps like a CapCut or InShot or one of these video editing apps that you can do right from your phone, and you can slap on really cool captions. It only takes you a couple minutes, and you could get like some nice quality production value in your videos without putting a lot of work in and without putting a lot of time in. Invest a little money to make sure that your videos look good, and just make sure your messaging is on point.
Yeah, I think those are great tips. I like your structure of, personal journey, customer reviews, and then expertise, authority-based content. I recommend something very similar to that. Well, great. Thanks so much for being here today, Danny.
Anytime.
How do people connect with you? How do people find you on social media? And how do people find out more about your offer and how you can help them?
I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. Just can search my name, Danny DelVecchio, DelVecchio. I know that's tough. I'm also Coach D Creates on Instagram. I hang out on Instagram quite a bit. And then my website, you can find me there. That's probably the easiest. It's CoachDannyD.com. And all my links are there.
Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Alex. Appreciate it.